shut up, you listen to my monkey mouth. There's a companion when you got pun on the canoa route. Hopped in a portal and got in a fight, Elias knocked him out. Bow, Naruto fighting style. Bow, UFC he tapped out. Bow, we win, we get crowned. Monkey mouth, monkey mouth, monkey mouth, monkey mouth.
Alright, welcome to episode 2 of Friday. This episode is called A Series Has Landed. So, on this one, we're basically getting an introduction to everybody. We're getting an introduction to some of the main characters that are going to come in on the rest of the episodes over time. So this one's air date was April 4th, 1999. We have a pretty important episode to get started on with basically Fry is getting kind of like, he's getting integrated into a new reality, and it's all pretty much the same except for genetic altering of certain things. So you have like baconated or caffeinated bacon, and then like a grapefruit that tastes like bacon, and then like it's Admiral Crunch instead of like Captain Crunch, and then like Archduke chocolate crunch instead of like your regular Blueberry Crunch, and like your Vampire Crunch or whatever that one's called. And these things are just slight variations on things that we've always had. And of course he's kind of acting like everything's so different. And so this is basically the introduction of Hermes. Hermes is basically like the business side for Professor Farnsworth to have a delivery company that just pays for the ins and outs and keeps the lights on so that he can do his mad scientist work. And the basically it's just a side hustle for him to basically keep things moving. This episode, you have an introduction of also Dr. Zoidberg, and Dr. Zoidberg is basically like a humanoid lobster kind of creature, and he's the doctor, and he of course doesn't know anything about the human body or the anatomy of a person. So essentially he's just kind of there to, you find over time like why Professor Farnsworth hired him on. But that's later on in the seasons, and where it kind of gets a bit convoluted, but it's still fun, of course. That's pretty much what this is all about. So the reason why you get introduced to these characters is so that they can set them up for what they're going to do down the road. So you find out that Hermes is pretty much loves being a shill for the government, and just kind of loves pushing papers, and he loves everything about bureaucracy and keeping things in checks and balances. And then Amy Wong is kind of a trust fund baby, carefree, loose kind of person, but still takes her education pretty seriously. So you find out that Amy Wong is of the Wong Mars family, and they're pretty much like multi billionaires who own all of Mars, and that comes in later on in the season as well. And Amy, of course, is kind of like this young carefree character that is kind of like the 20-something of like the new era of because Leela is probably like maybe 10 years older than her, so she's got a little bit more of maturity than her. She's already been kind of, with her being the last of her kind, and her being, forced to work in a 9-to-5 that she hates. Her spirit's a little bit more broken than Amy's. So they come to, two different times in their lives. And so this whole episode kind of takes place in them going to the moon to deliver a package, and of course you never quite know what the package is. The really funny thing is at the beginning of the episode, Professor Farnsworth basically has a new commercial come out for his his delivery company. He says he aired it on Super Bowl weekend, but of course not on the same channel. And so in the commercial, it states that, you know, our delivery men are replaceable, not your package, which is absolutely hilarious. And so the delivery boy, delivery man, delivery person is running away from danger at all costs, and gets the package delivered. And there's like Mr. Gelatinous Blob, who is trying to get his package, and of course the person who was supposed to get it for him doesn't succeed in getting Mr. Gelatinous Blob his package, and he essentially gets stuffed into the Gelatinous Blob's mouth. And then the commercial ends with him getting Gelatinous Blob's approval, because he's able to get the package delivered by Planet Express, which is, of course, the name of Professor Farnsworth's company. And then the commercial ends with the delivery person getting picked up by a giant bird. And Fry essentially saying, "There aren't birds that big, are there?" And he says, "Of course not. Now let's go have breakfast." And goes into like a half dozen large, like prehistorically large eggs. And one of the chicklings hatches and sticks him in his mouth, and he's trying to fight his way out. And from there, like I said, you have this excitement kind of go through Fry, because he's able to finally achieve one of his goals that in that time and place in the 90s would have never happened. He gets to go to the moon, and just an average person, getting to go into orbit is one of those things that is kind of, it's a lottery now. I think that there has been one or two average Joes or Janes who have gotten to go into space because of like SpaceX and whatever multi-billionaire is allowing the plebs to go into space with them. So he's so excited, and he gets cleared from Zoidberg. He says he's he's as healthy as a lobster, which later on in the season you find out that like he can basically be torn apart and still somehow Zoidberg can be have organs torn out of his body and still be kind of kicking it. And then they clean out Bender, and Bender's kind of like he's making like a show of himself so that he can pickpocket Amy, because of course she's got tons of money on her because she's her family's filthy rich. So Fry, with his excitement and with his pass from Zoidberg, is on the Planet Express ship saying, can he do the countdown? And I think he gets to like 3 when the spaceship takes off and lands above the moon, and he finishes off the countdown under his breath because they're already there. Fry is just in awe. He's just basically enthralled by every single thing that he sees. He's just a ball of joy. And it's kind of, if you've ever seen, what is it, Total Recall or anything like that, it kind of reminds me of that. You have a moon base pretty much where everything else is just desolate, but they moved a theme park to the moon, and it's the happiest place orbiting Earth is what Amy says. And so Amy is tasked with Fry to get the package delivered. If they can do it successfully in a short amount of time, they'll be able to go do bumper cars, because of course when you get off of the ship, you find out that essentially large corporations have just made it into a glorified theme park, and it's called Lunar Park, and it's just a giant Disney World, Six Flags, in on the moon. And they kind of want to just abandon the package in the sewer, but of course that's too much work. So Bender's like, let's just set it on fire and say we abandoned it in the sewer. And then, of course, the voice of reason, which is Leela, is like, no, we're going to deliver the package and then we're going to go. And is basically just worn down by the crew to at least just go do something fun in the park. Anything. So the lunar park is, like I said, just a bunch of hack stuff that you see in every park. Like I'm with Stupid on the Moon is at the gift shop center, and they're basically mocking it. And Amy, Leela, and Bender are basically just mocking it. But of course, like this is Fry's first time on the moon. He's in shock and awe of everything. Everything is just new to him, and he's just enthralled by it. And everybody's just kind of like, you need to grow up. Like this is just a crappy theme park. And he just can't understand why these people just aren't excited about it. I mean, he's just he gets off of the ship and recites, that's one small step, one giant leap and he gets cut off by get in the back of the line, and so it's just one of those things. Like everybody else is just kind of over it. It's just a weekend for them. But for Fry, coming from 3,000 years ago, this is absolutely insane, so he's kind of over it already, of course, because it's a theme park, and of course the guys, the friends are kind of just mocking every inch of it. So he's just kind of fed up with it, and he's like, well, this is kind of boring. I want to see the real moon. I want to see the moon that they showed on, Neil Armstrong landing on, and the other guys that nobody knows about, is what he basically says. And Leela, is like, but that's the boring part. Like, this is why we have the lunar park. And as they're kind of having a back and forth, you find out that, of course, through I think it was like the moon beavers or something, that it's all brought to you by Monsanto's. And so Monsanto's is basically the corporation behind all of the lunar base that they have. And so Leela's like, well, I'm gonna quell his like thirst for wanting to get out of the moon base by taking him to the educational part of the lunar park. And so, of course, Leela takes him to the track, this single car track that runs and says why and how they landed on the moon, which, of course, this is all ancient history. It's 3,000 years later, so they don't particularly know why we landed on the moon. So they make it up. They just make it up as they go along. And I think they said that at that given point, that of course they went to the moon to harpoon moon whales, and when they got there was basically no whales there, so they just sang a kind of like a moon shanty. And Bender is embarrassed to see that one of his college buddies and roommates is actually singing as on the theme park, and is just kind of like cringily embarrassed for not only him but his friend. So of course this still isn't enough to quell Fry's want to see the real side of them, the real moon, So he essentially gets one of the harpoons, puts it on the track, and takes one of the lunar rovers off to the actual moon. And Leela's having a fit. Bender's basically like, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go back into the park. And then, of course, him and Amy get into some trouble, because at the beginning of it, when they dropped off the package, Amy and Fry accidentally got the keys in the package. Well, come to find out, all the packages is stuffed animals for the claw machine. So the claw machine has the keys for the Planet Express ship, and now Amy's was supposed to be the responsible one out of Fry and Bender, got the keys stuck in the claw machine, and so is asking Bender to use his hands to get it, but Bender's hands are almost as useful as the actual claw machine. So every time he goes to reach for it, of course, it slips through his fingers, and so Amy is tasked with. He gets thrown out of the theme park for stealing, and he just throws it all on Amy and says that she programmed him to do evil, and now she's tasked with having to get the the keys out of the claw machine, and he's getting kicked out of the park. And he says one of the funniest things. He's like, well, I'm gonna make my own moon theme park with blackjacks and strippers. And then of course he gives up halfway through, and he continues to walk, I think, in the same direction that he sees the tire tracks from the lunar cart that Amy and Fry are driving. Well, that Leela and Fry are driving. Leela and Fry are off course completely. They don't know where they are, but they see a farmhouse and a barn, and it was like, well, we can just hang out in the night there. They're running out of oxygen. Leela pleads with the farmer to let them stay and asks if she can borrow some oxygen, which the farmer isn't about letting anyone borrow anything. You work for what you work for it. You don't actually get anything for free in this world. And so, of course, Fry completely obliges, but not knowing that I think nights are, what they said, 3 days on the moon. So it would be essentially 3 days for, a couple of hours to a day, maybe a half day's worth of oxygen. And he says, he goes, the backwards hick that's living on the moon farm says, oxygen don't grow on trees, though. He goes, you have to work it off in my hydroponic farm. So he's basically growing like moonweed. And they're working there under the express condition that neither of those two touch his daughters. And he goes on to say say, you're welcome to work here as long as you don't touch my daughters. And one of the daughters' names is the Crushinator, and the Crushinator is also an all-terrain vehicle as well, which is hilarious. And later on in the episode, you see them working in the hydroponic farm, and then you hear a shotgun go off, and it's Bender running away from the farmhouse because, of course, he wanted to bed one of the 3 robots that the father expressly said for them to stay away from. And right away, Fry's got his card and says, please tell me you didn't try and bed the Crushinator. And he goes, of course not. He goes, that's a lady. He goes, you gotta woo her, which is just one of the best things ever. So now they're on the run. They're on the run because Bender essentially tried to bed the Crushinator. You have Lula Bell 7, Daisy May 128K, and then the Crushinator. And of course, Bender tried to bed the Crushinator and gets called out by the father and gets a shotgun shot in the air, makes all 3 of them run away. So they jump on the I think they don't even get a chance to get more oxygen. They basically jump on the back of the lunar excavator, the lunar cart, and take off. And of course, since they're taking off now, they're taking off in the direction of the dark side of the moon. The dark side of the moon is actually creeping up on them, and they're running from the farmer, and he is just cannot understand why Crushinator won't jump one of the crevices to get him. And Crushinator says, but I love him, talking about Bender. So now they're in such a tight spot, and it's all because Fry just yearned to see something more than just this Monsanto's just kind of rose-colored commercialized version of the moon. He wanted to see what he was promised as a child, which, yes, may have been cold and lifeless, but was something that was kind of integral to his upbringing. I mean, he wanted to be an astronaut. He wanted to see the moon, and all it is now is just a glorified, Disneyland that is just so cold and void of any kind of spirit, and it's just so commercialized that he's just so hell-bent on seeing the real thing that he's willing to put all of the people that he cares about now in danger. And Leela just kind of tears him a new one, and just rips into him, and is like, listen, because of your recklessness, we're gonna die. We're gonna either starve to death or run out of oxygen, solely because you wanted to see something that is a wasteland, and so Fry kind of apologizes and says that he wanted to be an astronaut when he was little, but no one wanted to be around him when he was young, and he threw up, and he was just kind of this like awkward guy, and no one wanted to be around for him for a week, and Leela is kind of touched by the fact that Fry is so vulnerable with her, and they come across with the actual like lunar landing site. It helps them get away from the dark side of the moon, which of course is like, I think it's basically drops degrees to an uninhabitable state so that they would both die. And of course Bender doesn't need to go in there because he's not human. He's a robot. He can survive on the dark side of the moon. So they slam the door on Bender's face, and he goes on to it again. Well, fine. No room for Bender, huh? Well, I'm going to make my own lunar landing with blackjack and hookers. And of course, it being too difficult, he gives up on that as well and just kind of walks away. And I think that at the end, pretty much the hick catches up with them with Crushinator, and they're trying to escape, but they're stuck, of course, in the lunar landing, so they're just unable to get out of there. So here comes Amy to save the day. She's able to fly the ship and use the same mechanical magnet that helped her pick up the package to pick up the lunar module, or the lunar landing module, and pick it up and take him back to safety, along with Bender. And the funny thing is if Bender is exposed to any kind of magnet, his intuition chip goes out, so any of his darkest desires are kind of like able to come to the forefront of his mind, and you come to find out that Bender's desire is to become a folk singer, and so he's singing how many roads must a man go down before he can call him a man. And then at the end, whenever he's exposed to a magnet at the beginning, because Fry gives them all kind of like lunar park gifts, from the gift shop, and he puts it right on Bender's head, and Bender's immediately goes into like a trance of singing folk music. And then of course when Amy hits him with the strong magnet to pick him up with the lunar landing to take them home, he starts singing Jimmy Crack Corn. Fry is kind of like taken back by the fact that his desire is to be a folk singer. So this episode, I think that the great thing about this episode is that we can all relate, right? We all kind of, we all have our dreams and aspirations, and, there are people in our lives who want us to kind of stay in this relatively reality-based realm. And the funny thing is that in this particular time and space, all of Fry's dreams and aspirations can come true, and he doesn't have to be the type of person that it's not gatekept or unachievable at this point. It's kind of readily available to everybody, and so everybody is kind of used to the things that are that in the 1999 was not even unavailable, but just wasn't even thought of. The fact that in the year 3000 that there's a lunar park, is in the 90s is essentially just a joke. I mean, it's not real, and even now when we discuss, long-term travel into other planets, whether it's Mars or the moon or terraforming it, it's essentially a one-way trip. I mean, like, you're not coming back, and if you are coming back, I mean, the chances are very slim. I understand that that certain people want to forget that the world is it's self-healing, and yeah, you can yearn and want to terraform Mars or the moon, but essentially we should be wanting to take care of what we have, not yearning for something that is impractical or not impossible, but just impractical. We can fix things here and make this world not just livable but sustainable. And it's a cartoon, of course, and I don't want to get too into the diatribe soapbox of like what we could do to make this world better. But if the multi-billionaires and trillionaires would just kind of like take that same want and desire and focus it in on some sort of renewable resources or anything to make this world not only livable but sustainable, I mean, I think the game would be different. We also have the titular 20-year-old being given responsibilities that they're just not able to handle, but rising to the occasion. I think that we've all been in that situation in our 20s, where we're given a set of responsibilities, hope to achieve those responsibilities, and maybe just, fallen at every point, but still able to achieve it through our own means. I mean, that's kind of like the whole great thing about being in your 20s is basically ignoring all of the information that you get and coming to the conclusion that was probably the path of least resistance. And I have to contribute my co-producer, Cosmic Frog Wizard, in teaching me about the path of least resistance. I mean, in your 30s, that's pretty much what life is, and probably in your 40s and 50s is you're definitely not the bull running down the hill, if you've ever heard that one before. So I think we can all kind of respect Bender. He, love that Bender is this, this rascal, always drinking, always wanting to, be the little rapscallion that we know and love from Futurama. He only gets funnier as time progresses, and he only gets a little, crazier, and you get to he really gets to become a part of Futurama. That's one of the best things. I mean, as we move forward into the seasons, and as you'll find that it got picked up again, they wanted, of course, the same Bender, but they weren't willing to pay him what they were other characters in the television show, and essentially everything stopped. Everything came to a screeching halt, and they were like, and to the point where the whether it was FX or Comedy Central or whatever company it was like trying to poach other people to do Bender's voice. And the voice community seems to be a small, tight-knit, really loving community for the people that are around them, and was like, no, like, we're not going to, steal this man's voice and, make it our, push him out of it. We're not scabs, which is great. I mean, so we have the new seasons coming with the original Bender, and I couldn't be more happier. I think that in this episode you'll find that it really comes down to opening your heart to new experience, or opening your heart to people's experiences that you've experienced over time, and not becoming callous or cold or indifferent to other people's, you know, wonderment. You know, I'm sure that if I ever, you know, go to another country, there's people who have seen this every day. And, you know, there's people who see, you know, who get to see wonderment every day, and you know, you kind of lose that whimsy, and it's nice to see it through you know, fresh eyes. And that's essentially what we are, and what Fry is in this show. Futurama is standard characters that have, you know, been through it, and aren't exactly shocked or, you know, at all changed by the things that are revolutionizing and changing every experience that Fry has, you know, and is gonna have. I mean, coming from being, you know, a pizza delivery boy to, you know, express delivery, and traversing different planets. And I don't know if they go outside of the galaxy, but I know that they go to the end of the galaxy, which just essentially is only 2 galaxies, and the second one is just you in a cowboy outfit, which is great. I appreciate y'all guys so much. Just a little rundown of what Monkey Mouth is and what we're going to become. Monkey Mouth was just 2 friends kind of coming together talking about Rick and Morty. And one of my buddies was doing the Kahuna Companion. Please check it out, man. If you love anime and Naruto and these beautiful well-told stories like this, you get a fight companion piece with my buddy Josh. And not only does he love and respect it, but he essentially gives you everything you could possibly want to know with that episode. He gives you, you know, important information to it, and you just get to see the love and passion that he has for a really amazing show. And he just sharpens that knife on a whetstone that is Naruto, to make amazing content with me. That's the Portal Boys, or helping me with SUIL, or the Ones Who Woke Up, which I'm so excited for. You know, the Ones Who Woke Up is a podcast on its own that is going to basically let people into a world of, you know, psychedelics and the understanding of humanity. And it's just a beautiful podcast with great people that I just love being a part of. Everything that we do here, I essentially love being a part of. We're not only, you know, doing this for ourselves, but we're doing it for anybody who wants to build a podcast and wants to put a great piece of content out on the internet and have the response of not just strangers, but loved ones and families and friends, and building a community. And that's honestly what we're doing, man. Taylor is a great place, and it's only going to get better. So I love y'all guys. Thank you for listening to the second episode of Friday. I hope to see y'all guys on the next one.